Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of the AI Metagame podcast. I'm here with Lev Milman. Lev has a fascinating background. He was the U20 US Chess Champion, and I'm fascinated by his brain. He has a quite unique way of looking at the world. We're going to talk particularly about how he uses AI to continuously update his framework for thinking about the world. Lev, how's it going today?
I'm doing great, and I'm happy to be here. This is my first podcast, so very excited.
So I said I'm fascinated by your brain, and I absolutely am. I think everyone is fascinated by the kind of Gary Kasparovs of the world that can beat everyone in chess. Like this seems like such a crazy mental feat. Do you consider yourself a born or a made chess champion?
I mean, it's definitely a combination. I put a lot of time into it. Yeah, so like when I was very intense, I was studying chess for 10 hours a day. I mean, I think some of it, there's like a critical period when you're younger. So I think part of it was that. So like my neurons got wired a certain way at those critical stages in development. But yeah, I think a lot of it is also putting in the work and the effort. I definitely put a lot of time into chess.
So it sounds like you don't do a lot of software engineering. It's more project by project, but it does strike me that for software engineering, it is a valuable skill to think far ahead and reason back. Think ahead and consider possible contingencies where you could go off the tracks a little bit and sort of foresee future problems and reason back to what that means at the present. But I take it you're not doing intense software engineering projects. Is that true?
I mean, I've been learning a lot more about software engineering, so I'm definitely, putting time into working with like agentic coding. I took computer programming in high school, so I was learning like C++ and Java. And then in my first job after college, I was doing like some like Visual Basic in Excel. So I was doing some programming with that. But yeah, I mean, it's very different nowadays with the agentic coding.
So, what I find fascinating about your view of the world is that it seems to me you're constantly trying to improve what you know about the world without regard to any obvious objective function. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not trying to improve what you know about the world for the purposes of making better trades. I assume that if that were to happen, that would be just a good thing, but it's not your objective. And your objective really is to improve what you know about the world at each period of time. Is that fair?
So I would say in the past, I valued learning for curiosity's sake very often. So yeah, like historically, like I was always trying to learn more. And that was like, like so many different topics interested me. But lately I am trying to be a bit more practical with like all the information I take in. I try to like rate everything about how actionable the information is and how much it's going to change a belief, which tends to lead to like decisions and action down the line. Before, yeah, like my background is like I was a macro trader, so I did used to trade a lot. It definitely helped me getting all that information and even like yeah, like trading like prediction markets, for example, or even like poker players love to make prop bets. So it was always helpful to be on top of those things.
You break down your knowledge base in terms of atomic kernels of knowledge, like single statements. And
Yep.
you said that you have a file that has what, 10,000 plus statements about the world?
It's a lot more than that. Yeah, so it's atomic claims. Yeah, in my knowledge base, it's around like 600,000 claims right now. And it's always growing.
So a claim is not interesting if it's actually scientifically proven beyond any sort of immediate doubt, right? Like it's if it's been interrogated many times and not proven false, that's not an interesting claim, and that would not be something that would be in your vault of 600,000. Is that fair?
So if it's a claim that's been seen a lot and it's like, sort of obvious, it gets picked up in two ways. So first is the novelty. So it's likely already been in the knowledge base. and then it'll get a very low novelty score. And then also like I tend not to ingest or consume like those materials again that have those low novelty scores. But I also I also give a score for belief update, and that's what a top expert in the field would update their beliefs for that claim. So I have like a large language model, and it goes through every claim, and it judges how much a top expert in the field would update their beliefs. So if it's something like yeah, like very well known, that's going to get a pretty low score on the belief update.
What would your perfect kind of information diet look like? I assume it's relatively unexpected things that have high value and would cause potentially you to update beliefs in a strong fashion. Like what would be kind of an optimal information diet for you in a day in the abstract sense?
It's very personalized. So you know, it depends like what I'm doing and what I'm working on. Like for my grader, it has like very long instructions with plenty of examples. So it's, you know, I think it's like over 100 lines. It's a lot of lines basically, and it does a pretty good job. And so like right now, my focus, it's mostly on artificial intelligence. So a lot of the top items are artificial intelligence, and like I try to do things that are practical. So like, you know, even especially like it knows my workflow. So like, you know, it knows like I work with something called Nation, which is like an automated AI software, and I work with like NotebookLM and certain things like that. Like it realizes. So if it sees something in the knowledge base that's practical and that I can use right away, that's actionable within a short period of time, then those things get rated highly. You know, very big macro things about the world related to AI, which is like, you know, the where I'm spending most of my time right now. So those tend to be like near the top of like rated near the top for me.
So let me see if I can explain it and you correct me. You're trying to learn as much as you can about AI at the moment. And so you're using AI to ingest as much information as you possibly could from a huge variety of sources. And these sources would include, you can just tell me like journal articles, Twitter, probably the frontier labs themselves, thought leaders, maybe YouTube, podcasts. Is that is that it, or is it even bigger funnel?
Yeah, so it's a huge funnel. So yeah, I have it's 1,300 RSS feeds right now. And a lot of those are YouTube. So I think about like three or 400 are YouTube channels. And the rest, yeah, it's a lot of like a lot of blogs. Yeah, like newspapers, you know, yeah, the Journal, Financial Times, Bloomberg. But yeah, besides that, yeah, I have Twitter. So I have like ingesting a lot from Twitter. Every hour I get new Twitter feeds in there. So I have daily deep research reports that say what's changed in the past 24 hours. It has a very personalized prompt to me, so it makes it very relevant for me. And those reports tend to be very good. Besides that, I have Google Trends, I have Wikipedia, I have Discord.
That's a pretty serious funnel.
Right.
Um, so you're taking all that information, and then the LLMs are evaluating all of it every day, continuously throughout the day.
Mhm.
And you explain that the dedupe process is super important. So you're taking all of that, and the LLM is kind of taking out what you already know, and that's getting you tighter in the funnel. Is that a good step one and two?
Right. Yeah. So the first step is everything goes through the grader, and then the grader assigns grades. And before I used to, I mean, I still do. So I filter out the very bottom information, like a lot of it actually. It's like the majority, probably like 80% of the things that go through the feed get filtered out. But then for the rest of it, yeah, so it gets a grade. And then based off the grade, it gets either like a long summary or a short summary. It could differ a lot. So like my shorter summaries are just like a few sentences, basically. And then yeah, the longer summaries, it's like, you know, like thousands of words. And then everything gets deduped. So yeah, I have everything goes against the knowledge base. So, you know, those like around 600,000 claims right now. And it dedupes like on a sentence level to some degree. So I have the way the deduper works, it has four different options. So that if everything is new, like, and for me, like I set a novelty score. It's also like it's novelty and also the other scores matter too. So I have like a composite score that I factor in also. But the novelty score is the main factor. So if the novelty score, I do a cutoff of 30. for the most part. So novelty scores below 30, it means I've probably seen, something very similar, using like the semantic function. So there's four options. It can be original, it can be deduped. If there's only a few new claims, it just tells me those new claims. Let's say it's, the whole article only has like three new things I haven't seen, or even just one new claim. That's all it'll tell me. And also it has a rewrite function. So if less than half of the things are new, but it's more than like three or four, it'll rewrite the whole summary. It saves me a lot of time.
So the dedupe comes in after the grading has basically determined how much of the article you want to see. So a high grade on a 10,000 word blog post, that might be worth 500 words worth of summary or even 1,000 words worth of summary. And a not that interesting, lowish, midish grade 1,000 word blog post that might only warrant 20 words worth. And then after that, you have the dedupe where it's getting shorter still. Is that fair?
Yeah, it gives me just like, the essentials basically. So I don't listen to the same things twice. So if there's, like a big thing going on in the world, I don't have to hear that same sentence over and over again.
Okay, and this is the other crazy part about your framework that I think will blow people away. You're listening to most of this information, and you're listening at, if I remember correctly, 4.5x speed. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, do you read any of it, or do you listen to almost all of it?
The way I listen, I have the text on my screen at the same time. So I'm listening, but I use a text-to-speech player, so I can see the words. And then I can always scroll back to what I just heard. If I click on the word, I'll start speaking from there again. But what I often do is I'll take a screenshot of like the few paragraphs, let's say, and then if I want to dive deeper, like I'll send those few paragraphs to an LLM, and then we'll dive deeper into that aspect, for example.
Are you multitasking as you're listening, or you're just listening and sort of watching things go on screen?
Yeah, I'm listening when I'm doing other things. So yeah, it's usually like when I'm preparing food or in the shower, or like brushing my teeth, exercising, things of that nature.
And you're listening presumably in the somewhat monotonic style of the LLM.
I think people get used to like different voices, like text-to-speech voices. But yeah, there's like a certain voice that I like, and like, you get used to certain voices, and it becomes easier to listen at various speeds.
So if someone has your 600,000 claims, they kind of know where you stand in the world. Like you've mentioned you're very interested in health as well.
Mhm.
They can read this base of 600,000 claims and kind of know your beliefs about the world.
I put all my like notes in there, like a lot of my personal notes from Obsidian. So yeah, like it has my beliefs and what I know. I can filter that out. So like the knowledge base, it shows the source. It'll show like URL, like it's an article versus YouTube versus it's from my Obsidian knowledge base versus deep research report. So I can see the different sources. So like I'm able to filter that out. But yeah, like right now, like the whole knowledge base, it does have my personal beliefs, and that helps with the deduping and like the belief changes and things like that. And like because like I use the knowledge base to do like research, and I have like LLMs analyze it often, so I'll have Claude go through it a bunch. So
So I kind of skipped the usual part of podcasting where we go over background because I was so fascinated by Chess Champion. You worked in finance for a while, quite successfully. You also played professional poker. And then recently you were betting sports as an originator where you made the lines for major sports where you kind of did your own work, had your own models and made your own lines.
mhm.
Um, and then you said that you stopped doing that based on tax law changes. Now it's pure AI. Um, when you were doing sports, did you have a similar process of these are my beliefs about the universe of sports? And presumably the more kind of unique beliefs had high value? Did you have a similar framework?
Like in sports and in markets and a lot of things I've done, like you're always looking for that edge. And you know, like you're getting that objective feedback, especially like with sports. Like, you know, I was betting baseball, like, you know, there was like 15 games per day. So like you get a lot of feedback very quickly all the time. So yeah, like you're always testing like theories and edges, and then like there's always, you know, there's new analytics coming around in the sports world, and then, you know, what the coaches are saying, what the players are doing, like the rule changes, and, you know, like weather, injuries, like rumors, even, you know, there's always a lot of information.
So now that you're in AI, you really only care about your beliefs about the world and improving your beliefs about the world. In markets and in sports, you have to care about, okay, these are my beliefs about the world. And then you have to make guesses about this is other people's beliefs about the world. Is that fair?
There's still like external feedback even with AI. And like I think when we talked before, like I was saying, like AI tends to normalize and like put you like on a median bias. So like I do things that are very, you know, different. Like for example, like if I tell an LLM that I listen at 4.5x, it tells me like you can't understand anything. Like it just doesn't understand that I actually can. It tends to like, you know, to have that median normalcy bias that we talked about before.
Like
So yeah,
you
like I
can't
have
win at sports, you can't
right,
win in markets.
right, exactly. Lately, I have to push back a lot on some of those things.
What would you consider your objective now other than learning as much as you can about AI as quickly as possible?
Lately, what I've been doing, it's about productivity and time saving. So like I've automated so many things. Like most things that were taking me like over a minute, like I've automated. So I have a ton of like shortcuts on my computer. I like a mouse with like 11 buttons, like everything does something different.
I don't think
Um,
I've ever seen that before. You have a mouse with 11 buttons?
yeah.
How does that even work? I've never seen that.
It has like, yeah, so it has like 3 or 4 buttons on the side, and then like you can hold one and push other ones, and
That's wild.
right.
Do you use voice? Presumably you can't use voice dictation because you're listening at 4.5 times.
No, no, actually, the funny thing is, the dictation tool, it doesn't pick up the 4.5x because it's too fast for it.
Okay.
So it just picks up my voice. So it's
That's
actually
wild. So you are barking commands to your agent all the time,
right.
listening at the 4.5x.
Yeah, and I just checked. I use like Whisper Flow on my desktop, and they said like from when I signed up to now, I was like top 1% of their users in the same cohort.
So do you have an agent that's attached to everything that you use, email, calendar, and all the things, and that works kind of separately from your knowledge engine, or is it one agent that does everything together?
No, so I have separate, and yeah, so I have, I think it's about like 11 agents. I mean, the main thing for me, it's not so much the email. For me, I have this long to-do list. So I have like a to-do list with like 450 items. And so like I have like an AI chief of staff, and so it has that to-do list, and it has my knowledge base and other things, and it's always prioritizing like my to-do list. So yeah, like I'll talk back and forth about that, about like what I should be working on and prioritizing. Um,
And so those 450 things, presumably they stay on there because they have various bottlenecks and human dependencies that prevent the AI from just doing it. So they're kind of relatively complex things that are there.
mhm.
And do you give the AI a lot of liberty in terms of access to payments and all of the different things that you use, like email and scheduling and that type of thing?
No, I had an issue today where I told Claude to work on something, and it's like I deleted that, and it's like I didn't save a copy. That was like its response to me. So no, I mean, yeah, I'm not too trusting in general. And
Your biggest token usage by far is in knowledge exploration and paring down your sort of daily media diet. It's not even media diet, it's like information diet.
right now, yeah, that's my biggest token usage. I mean, at some point, I think I was telling you before, like I was trying to have OpenClaw go through my to-do list, and so yeah, like when that happened, my token usage skyrocketed because I gave it the 450 item to-do list and told it to do everything.
It kept banging its head up against the wall, going in
Right,
circles.
right. Exactly.
Do you think that your general process is copyable by other people? The idea, like if someone were to even just get started, maybe they wouldn't have 600,000 claims about the world, but if they just wanted to break down their thinking into, I don't know, 5,000 atomic claims about the world, how would you recommend that they even get started in that process?
Right. When I first imported was like my notes. So I used to keep a lot of notes in like Microsoft Word. I had the agent go through my old notes and I was able to pull out like my beliefs and claims. Like I tended to take a lot of notes. Like I had like a journal. So, you know, like it pulled out all the beliefs from my like my journal, for example, like going back over 10 years. Like that was pretty cool because you can see like the, you know, like how your belief changed that way. Um,
Does the AI sort of appreciate it when you break it down atomically and it can look at each claim individually? Does that seem to work well in LLM land?
some of the claims like don't make as much sense without the context. And like it tries to like pull the context in, but I mean it's not always that possible. And then like sometimes it gets tricked. So like yesterday was April Fool's, right? It's like there was a lot of like fake stories. So like I think a lot of like the Frontier Labs changed their LLMs to say it was March 32nd so that they wouldn't keep the data.
Explain to me how the LLM is evaluating the potential value of information for you. Like, how is it deciding which information to show you? Is it on the basis of stuff that they think is best, that has scored highly in your scoring system and is has not been shrunken too much by your dedupe? Or is it things where they're like, okay, this, at least from a Bayesian perspective, has the potential to change how Lev looks at the world?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's that good at like the second order thinking. What I have at the top, it's, you know, expected value per attention. So it's trying to maximize, you know, like the utility for a time unit. And then like to like, you know, what I'm doing, what I'm interested in. And so yeah, it's like a lot of it's like health longevity related and AI related, but also yeah, like productivity related too. So anything that would save me time.
So that's a controversial claim. Expected value per attention.
Hmm.
So I guess one of the buried pieces in there is that you have an assumption that your attention is constant, like the quality of your attention is of consistent quality, even if
Um,
you're being bombarded by a lot of stuff, a lot of high value stuff at 4.5 times speed. Have you found that your attention is of fairly constant quality?
no, I mean like if I'm doing like some like deep thinking, it's going to be in the mornings, right? So like yeah, like I'm cognitively better in the mornings, and then in the evenings. Like when I used to play poker, like those late night sessions, like I would always like discount it, you know, depending on how late it went, like 20%, 30%. Yeah, I mean you get tired later at night.
I know that your objective function is complicated. I'm trying to understand how you think about expected value. I could conceive of three different ways that you might be thinking about it. One is expected value of just improving my knowledge base. I could think about it in terms of expected value in money terms, like this is timely and has value in prediction markets or something like that. And I could think about it in terms of expected value in health span, for example, since I know you're very interested in health and longevity. Is it like this, like a very broad conception of value?
Right, yeah, it's not like just one thing, right? It's going to be a mixture, like a, you know, like weighted, yes, health and wealth, like money and yeah, and time, like you know, time's very important, and I mean, there's things like security, resilience, social health, mental health.
And it's got a very complex weighting like that. Like you've given it instruction.
Right, I check the results and I try to upgrade it when I can.
I'm wondering, when you decided to break down your pipeline into having
right?
many
Into
agents, you
multiple.
mentioned that you have an orchestrator plus 10 agents or something like that.
Right. I heard through like my pipeline, right? It's like when I was listening to the text to speech, it was telling me, like a lot of people were doing that. So a lot of other people were having, like the chief of staffs and the different sub agents. And it was something I always wanted to do. And it was actually like the LLMs were pushing back against me. They're like, you shouldn't do multiple agents. But then, like I started pushing back more against them. And I tried it and yeah, I think it works pretty well. They have their memories and their memories update. And I think it makes sense. I think people are going to have teams of agents. And like agents, if things go too many steps, they don't do well. And I think one thing that people underappreciate too, it's the critic. Like I think it's very important to have a critic agent. Like there was a study with like how people used LLMs for forecasting, and it was like 99% of people didn't use the LLMs as critics. And like the people that did, like those were the people that did the best at forecasting. So I think it's like very important to have a critic, for example.
No doubt. Seems like having a Silicon Council type antagonistic assault framework is extremely valuable in any implementation, any process. So I think people can understand the idea of the big funnel and then the grading and the deduping. And I think they can also understand what your objective is, which is to have the highest EV per unit of attention, where EV is broadly construed. Um, so on the one hand, the objective is to just get the highest quality, most distilled information stream per unit of time so as to maximize learning. Um, I feel like the missing step is you've got these 600,000 claims. Now, how do you, at the end of the day, update your beliefs?
Right. I mean, yeah, it's not easy because a lot of it, like it is like, like second and third order thinking. So, like you have to do like the deep research and do like those antagonistic, like you want like to steel man both sides. But I think that works very well. It's like the consensus in the Silicon Council, that you were talking about. So, for example, there's Metaculus, which is like a prediction forecasting site. And recently, Mantic, it's an AI company, and like they've been scoring like top 10 in their tournaments on there for forecasting. And like, it uses that Silicon Council, so they fine-tuned a model on an open source LLM, and then they combined it with the second best one was Grok, and probably because it has like the X Twitter feed there. And so they had the Silicon Council, but then also yeah, like after that, like you still want the critic to come up with like your belief changes and to run. I think one of the best things is to run deep research reports, and then after you run the deep research reports to have like antagonistic back and forth about those. And I think that's the best way to update your beliefs and forecasts.
Can you conceive of a world where like your 600,000 atomic beliefs are becoming less important because you kind of trust the judgment of the LLM over your beliefs? You're just like, go ahead and take out the beliefs that you think clash with the way the world is.
Yeah, it's a big problem. Like, yeah, so it's called automation bias. So, like when something's automated and people see the answers, like they become lazy and they don't want to do the work. So like you see what the LLM tells you and you just, like you assume it's right and you go with it. That's like a lesson I learned. Like I learned like I have to push back a lot more against some of its thinking. And because there's various areas where it falters.
One thing I really admire about your framework is that it requires a lot of integrity of thought. I think something people love about markets is the fact that when you take a position, you're implicitly stating your belief about the world. But in most intellectual endeavors, people are a bit fluid and they think, oh, I might believe this, I might believe that, I might be able to argue this, I might be able to argue that. And they kind of don't like being pinned down. But it seems to me that your philosophy is all about pinning yourself down into this is what I believe. Is that fair?
Right. I love to seek truths, and I love to like be objective. So even like in my younger days, like I was always looking for like the best chess moves, like the very objectively best moves. And then yeah, in trading and in sports, like like you're always looking for that slight edge, that even like the 0.1% edge if you're trading often. Yeah, and people don't like it, but yeah, like on the trading floor, like yeah, like we would always play games like you had to make a market, like you were forced to make a market and challenge your beliefs. Yeah, in general, yeah, like people tend to underappreciate like probabilistic thinking.
And do you force yourself into uncomfortable statements when you're kind of doing your atomic beliefs? Like, I don't know, I could imagine someone has belief about the probability that thinking life is out there in the universe, some other planet, but I'm sort of uncomfortable putting a probability on that. Do you force yourself to put probabilities on things like that are it's kind of necessary if you're going to learn about the world, right? If you're going to see what information might be of value, but it's also very uncomfortable.
Right. I think this has a little to do. So there's like the scout versus soldier mindset. And I think internally it makes sense to have that scout mindset and that scout mindset, like you are seeking the truth, or at least internally. But yeah, like some of those beliefs, I think you don't want to like necessarily put out there externally, especially if it's like, something pessimistic, because, it might like, if you're like running a company, like you're trying to encourage your employees, for example.
Do you think LLMs operate like you in the sense of having integrity of belief? It seems to me that a lot of the biggest problems for LLMs stem from one, the fact that they always have to have an answer. Two, reward hacking broadly construed. And then three, hallucination, which I think is somewhat related to the fact that they always have to have an answer, even if they're not prepared in any way, and somewhat related to the fact that they don't really understand the world causally like we understand the world causally. So they have they have big holes that can sometimes reveal themselves. Do you think it's fair to say that LLMs do not have this integrity, this integral view of the world where they're trying to piece together like a full version of truth, full knowledge about the world?
Right. Yeah, you see that a lot. There's the sycophancy versus the truth. And they're trying to please the users. So yeah, for like a lot of people, like they don't want to hear the truth because it's not it's uncomfortable sometimes, if it's going to be honest with you. And I think it's binary, like whether people like the sycophancy versus the more like tell me like it really is. So for me, like, when I do the personalized instruction, I tell the LM to tell me like it really is and to be, like brutally honest and things of that nature.
So your Claude MD is quite involved.
Right. But then sometimes if I use an LLM that I haven't personalized, I remember like I was using Grok because, like I think one of my LLMs got downgraded a little bit and I hadn't personalized it. And like it's like first sentence was like, this is the most brilliant PhD level work I've ever seen. Like, do you want to riff on it more? And I was just like, I'm like, well, you're wasting tokens. Like, like, what are you doing?
And what is your favorite model at the moment?
I'm a big fan of Claude's personality. I mean, ChatGPT's answers tend to be very wordy. I mean, I have various prompts to fix that, but ChatGPT they had memory for longer, so like it has a more history of me. Even though nowadays most of the models are making it easier to export your memory. Yeah, so like Gemini just added like to an easy function to export the ChatGPT memory, for example. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I use them for different things. Like I think when we spoke before, yeah. So like Gemini is very good at like videos and pictures with images. Yeah, I like Claude's personality a little better. But yeah, like my daily driver tends to be ChatGPT just because it has a longer term memory. Even though I do get mad at it sometimes.
So, you said a lot of your daily media diet is health.
Hmm.
Is it health for optimizing your health, health for living as long as you can? What does your objective look like?
Yeah, like I follow the top like scientists in longevity. So I went to a conference in Vegas. It was like it's called RADFest. It's like radical anti-aging or yeah against death, for example. And yeah, so it's like Aubrey de Grey was like the headliner there. And I think, there's a lot of progress being made there. Actually, like a few days ago, it was in the news that there's these organ replacement. There's all these like stealth startups that are growing organs so that you can replace organs. At that conference, I spoke to Jean Hebert, and he got funding by ARPA-H. So ARPA-H is like DARPA for health, and they're working on gradual brain replacement. So replacing the
Gradual
brain.
brain replacement.
Yes.
That's the obvious counter to organ replacement is who cares if you live to be 140 if your brain's gone when you're 90, or who cares even if you live longer than that if your brain is not working. That's been the big challenge. But they're working on replacing the brains. Explain how that goes.
Yeah, so it's gradual brain replacements. What he's doing, it's like the parts that are already like dying or dead. I mean, and at first, it's for like diseases and things of that nature. But I mean, like that's like if you ask the anti-aging and longevity community when they do surveys, so like the top anti-aging and longevity thing now, it's rapamycin. So rapamycin shows very good life extension. Like with various animals, it shows like 30% life extension. But then those surveys, they show in 10 years, like organ replacement tends to be one of the most exciting paths for longevity.
Would you consider yourself quite conservative when it comes to interventions or somewhat aggressive?
I'm pretty quantified, so like I measure things. So I did like a metabolomics test and various other health tests. And yeah, like it was showing that some of the supplements I was taking, even some of the common supplements like collagen and creatine, weren't doing that well for me. So I tend not to supplement that much. I do the pace of aging tests. Like I do pretty well there. I usually get like I'm aging like 70% per year for every calendar year. So it's like that tends to be a pretty good result.
How were they able to determine that the supplements were not working for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like relatively new, and the science isn't really there. So it was more just my own research as opposed to like what the company tells you. When you do the test, you get like a result that has like like 10,000 items or so. It tells you like like your like C15 level. Like there's all these like little things that it reports on, and it's a ton of data. And yeah, like right now it's still not clear. I mean, most people aren't doing these tests because it's not that clear what the actionable item is. And it takes a lot of work. So like, like doing some research and I was seeing like where my data was suboptimal. And then based off that research, I was changing some of my supplements around.
But your fundamentals are eat well, sleep well, and I know you do the 4x4 Norwegian protocol.
One thing I do is I walk a lot.
Okay.
I have a walking desk, and I tend to walk like at least 6 hours a day.
Wow. And the running thing is more sporadic.
Yeah, I tended to run daily. Also either sprinting or jogging. It depends. Yeah, so like I measure my heart rate variability every day. If my heart rate variability is very low, if I feel like I'm getting sick and my heart rate is very low, I'll take a break. But then yeah, otherwise, if it's like way above average, I'll tend to do like the Norwegian 4x4s. So I'll get to like 90% of my max heart rate or higher. And then on other days, I'll do like the zone two training. So that's like a Peter Attia recommendation. He does the zone two. And so yeah, I'll tend to do at least like 45 minutes, usually like 45 to 60 minutes of like a zone two jog.
You haven't had a traditional job in a long time. If someone saw your information process and they said, we have to hire you for this or that, is it something you would consider, or you value your own autonomy completely?
Well, I think nowadays, with like work from home, like a lot of people are going to the office 3 days a week, for example. So I think there's still a lot of autonomy there. But I think like you get a lot of ideas like collaborating when you had like Bell Labs, like all the scientists were there, and just like lately in the LLM group chat, it's great to see like what other people are frustrated with. Like, it's great to just be in a community and like you can do way more with other people as opposed to just individually.
In the prediction market space, it sounds like you've maybe always been involved, or is it a newer thing?
I used to check like Metaculus daily, and then yeah, like I would put my forecasts in, and then I would see how I did, and I tended to have like a pretty good Briar score. Obviously, like I was a trader, and I was still trading until like a few months ago. I think it's a very good way to see like community forecasts about the world, especially about like very important things like that, like about the future of AI. For example, the Metaculus forecast on when strong AGI is going to happen. Like it's like a very very important market. So I think it's like important to keep up with.
So to wrap us up, I want to know one last thing about your process. How do you sort of compile over the long term your best of? Because I could imagine myself, I do think that my memory is a function of the amount of stuff that goes through it. I feel like my memory gets slightly worse each year. And I know that some of that is just aging, but I also think a lot of it is the absolutely extraordinary amount of information that goes through. So I'm wondering how you, with your 4.5 times speed and max expected value per unit of information, are able to retain, and how are you organizing this information? Is it you take the best things that you've read and you make a couple pages of that and put it in a daily log, or um, you, because I imagine the 600,000 lines is difficult to go through. How do you keep an update of the best of what you discovered each day?
I use Obsidian, which I switched to, so I have like various folders. Yeah, I mean, like within the knowledge base, like the items get graded, and I could add my own grade. I mean, the important thing to me is things that I'm going to look back at. Like when I write down things in Obsidian, for example, it tends to be things that I think I'll look back at. So like that's what I tend to save, like things that will be useful multiple times as opposed to just once. I used to just like write down everything that was even interesting. So like a lot of my notes are just like things I thought were interesting at the time. In terms of the valuable things, yeah, like I have the various grades. So I do like a composite formula. What I often do is I pull in like the top 25,000 claims from my knowledge base, and then I'll run it through NotebookLM. And like for that composite score, it includes like the temporal discount. So like things that are older get discounted, but it has all my scores. So it has an importance score, a decision score, the novelty score, a belief update score, so the time elements.
You mentioned that you have not really studied information theory, but obviously there's a strong information theory component to what you do. I'm wondering if there's any participant uh, that influenced your thought. It sounds very Ray Dalio in a way, what you do. Is there any individual that really influenced your way of doing things?
Well, actually, I'm a big fan of Ed Thorpe.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so Ed Thorpe, actually, he worked with Claude Shannon. They did they were able to beat roulette.
Yeah, I
So
remember that.
yeah, they had the thing in their shoe to beat the roulette table. Because Ed Thorpe, he did trading, he did blackjack, like he did gambling. So it's
And health,
yeah,
because I've read
yeah,
a
yeah,
recent
yeah,
interview with him where he says, for example, that he doesn't do long driving no matter what, because it's statistically the most dangerous thing we do. And
yeah, yeah,
he has
yeah, and
all
that's
the
that's very
idiosyncratic
it's
beliefs that he acts on.
in my circles. Yeah, there's a lot of people who don't like to drive, and I'm the same. Like, yeah, if it's like I'll prefer a flight because it's so much safer than driving.
Well, Lev, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for the time.
Yeah, this was great. I really appreciate it, and thanks again for having me.